What is going on, everybody? Welcome to our discussion here for HBO's The Last of Us, Episode 7. And by Star Wars standards, that means this was the best episode.
Whoa.
Do we think that it is for The Last of Us? Only time will tell. John and I are going to get into it. But that being said, I'm Josiah and with me today, Mr. Baba Yaga, John Fick. I hope people are watching the video version of this as opposed to listening to the podcast version, because look at that lettuce. It is beautiful.
I thought you were going to mention the 26 shirts Buffalo hoodie, but no, yeah, the lettuce is out today. Well,
that's 1B. The lettuce is 1A, though. Look at that. It's awesome, man.
Appreciate it.
How you doing, John?
I'm good. I brought back the clicker beer. I saved a couple of cans of that, making sure I have that on these episodes, because why not? It's thematic. Got to do it.
Absolutely. And hey, it's only a matter of time, I hope, before someone like Thin Man or someone else local in Buffalo comes out with something Mando themed. Let's go.
Oh, absolutely.
Let's do this.
That's going to happen.
It's gotta. So, yeah, I'm glad you're enjoying that beer. You cracked one of those open on Busy Sticks last week, and it's been on my mind ever since.
Yeah,
I tell you.
It's good stuff. Did you take a trip out to Wegmans to see if you can find it or not yet?
I have not, but I'm hopeful. You said, with what you said last week, the intel, where you found it, that it was in a few locations as well, and consumers, I'm going to get my hands on some.
I believe in you.
We'll get there. But tonight, we talk about The Last of Us. We'll keep it spoiler-free here for the first few minutes, and then we'll flip a switch and get into a deep dive on spoilers. So, episode 7 here, Left Behind. John, your initial reactions on what we got for this episode?
It was awesome. I mean, I'm never going to... They just keep killing it, and there's no point where we're ever going to say anything, but this is awesome. They know what they're doing, and they clearly show it. Yeah, it was a fun little day in the life with Ellie, and you get that background, and you get some real sad emotional stuff too. It was everything about The Last of Us that we love about The Last of Us, all kind of in one episode. I thought they did an awesome job recreating a lot of the stuff from the game, but some of those visuals in a live action setting they hit different. Some of that stuff is just a little, just floors you a little more when it's live action. So I'm excited to talk about some of the details and some of the stuff that we got to experience throughout that journey. But yeah, of course, I wouldn't say, you said maybe we'll say this is our favorite episode. I wouldn't say this is my favorite episode. Maybe the first time throughout the series, I would still stick with episode 6 as being my front runner for my favorite episode, followed closely maybe by 3, the Frank and Bill episode. But it's, it's a high bar. All of these are incredible.
I would agree with you that 6 is still the one to beat from my perspective. It was interesting. I had just a quick conversation with someone earlier about this, which is not to speak of the quality of these episodes, but I was like, theoretically, you could not see episodes 3 and 7 and still be okay.
Right.
Yeah, you're not getting full experience, but these are very different episodes that it's not necessarily the modern day story.
Especially if you think about this episode, Left Behind. This was not in the game at all. I mean, I know the episode 3 wasn't either, but this was specifically DLC. This came out after the fact, so they already told the story without both of these things. So of course, it would hold up.
However, what I did enjoy, I will say, with this episode is how they tied it back to the modern day scenario and what was happening in Ellie's mind, and how it relates to what we saw in kind of the Left Behind storyline. So you also said it right from my perspective, where some of the visuals hit differently. Like, yeah, I was so excited to get to this episode for a number of reasons, but one of which was to see how they recreated that mall and what that was actually going to look like as a giant set piece. And boy, it's just beautiful, but it really does feel different. Like in the game, I found myself wanting to explore.
I was just going to say that.
Every nook and cranny. I'm like, oh, but you guys didn't. I almost felt shortchanged. I'm like, you guys didn't go down that wing yet.
Right,
I know that's silly to say. This is not the video game, but that was different, and also just a little bit slightly different with how I don't know if it was the color palette. Obviously, it doesn't totally translate from video game to live action, but they went with a little bit of a different style here, and it worked where it met more of the need for a TV show.
Yeah.
I don't know if I'm explaining that totally well, but that's what I saw when you see the game and the TV show side by side.
It was more visually popping for sure. And it's that thing where it's like they have to make this work in a different medium, like we've talked about so many times. In the game, you already said it, you get to explore them all. You get to, while you're in the arcade or whatever, you get to walk over and you get to see different things. You don't have that luxury with a TV show. You get what you're shown at that time. So it has to really pop to have that same kind of like awe that we had when we played the game and got to explore that arcade or that mall, whatever.
Yeah, I agree. Again, if you haven't played the video game, this is kind of a part of the Last of Us Part 1. This is the DLC Left Behind, which tells a pretty important story, especially as you get to The Last of Us Part 2, whether we're watching on HBO or we're playing the video game. So very meaningful and probably one of the most relevant DLC packages I can recall in the last 10 to 15 years.
Yeah, it's definitely it's part of the story. I mean, like it is Ellie's backstory, and it gives you some pretty critical information as to who she is as a person. Obviously, we kept kind of talking about when we knew this episode was coming. We saw some footage of it. We knew that Riley was cast. We knew that some things were happening. Right. We kept talking about when they would be. When were they going to push this episode in there? You thought it might be episode 3. I totally forgot. And watching this reminded me, this has a very specific place in the game. When you play the Left Behind DLC, it is exactly in winter. It is exactly after Joel gets hurt and Ellie is tending to him really quickly. And I even just remembered that when you play the Left Behind DLC, you actually play some modern time. You're going through the mall trying to find some supplies for Joel. So I can't believe I forgot that there actually is a very specific time that this takes place.
Despite having played this game and that DLC now 3 times through, I never put 2 and 2 together with when it actually theoretically took place. I just always played it as that standalone pack after I beat the mainline story. So it's funny you say that, but the pieces were there all along.
Well, no, they when you play the DLC, like you are playing modern day time too. Like it starts off with you and Joel as he's hurt. Like it is she's having that flashback in this place and time, and you are actually getting modern day stuff, which I totally forgot about. I've only played Left Behind once though.
It doesn't even occur to me that that's part of it. Like that, it's not even like a part of my memory bank. I just remember what Ellie goes through and kind of the adventure, so to speak, before things turn out the way that they do.
Right, because there's even some combat scenes with Ellie in that mall. Where like she actually has her bow and stuff like that. Or maybe it's all stealth, I forget. Maybe she doesn't have the bow yet, but like your modern day in that same mall, which was kind of a cool contrast that they didn't do in the show. But we're getting maybe a little close to spoilers here.
I agree, and they had to do it that way to make this work. So when we knew this was going to be a thing prior to the show releasing, I had it pegged for episode 3. We had heard some smoke that was going to be a highly riveting episode for a number of reasons. And I just was like, that's it. That's got to be the one. Obviously, didn't know that Bill and Frank were going to be a thing at all, really, in this show, and especially what we got. So I was wrong, but nonetheless, we got this here. My tongue-in-cheek made a reference about it being the best episode because it was episode 7. Force Awakens is the best Star Wars. I'm going to say it. Tell them blue in the face. It is. So, alas, we've got some more consistent high quality from HBO's The Last of Us. We're going to dive into some spoiler territory here. So if you have not watched episode 7 yet, you might want to just bookmark this and come back to it. You can watch the video back at youtube.com/thegeekiverse or listen on podcast services around the globe. Hopefully you're joining us right now live at twitch.tv/thegeekiverse. We're going to get into John's notes here and run down bullet point by bullet point some of the more memorable pieces of the episode, maybe some Easter eggs. John, take it away when you're ready.
Here we are. Episode 7, titled Left Behind. This is the one I could have guessed would have been called Left Behind. I could have got this one right for sure. Oh, I would have won some money on betting the title here. We start off with Joel and Ellie making their way towards this house. Actually, I think they're already in the house, and much to non-game players' relief, Joel is still alive. He's kind of hanging on there. I know that was a big cliffhanger for a lot of people who never played the game, and all of us who have played the game are just trying to keep our mouths shut. We have spouses Googling whether or not Joel's alive. We're like, do not do that. Do not do that.
Why would you do that to yourself? Listen, I know it's so emotional, but just watch. Oh, John, I got to break in real quick. Our good buddy Ryan Gorman. He might even be watching. Okay, so the other day, he's so sly. He doesn't know how this turns out. He's not played the game. So we're going through, he's enjoying the show a ton. And he starts talking about Joel. He's like, everyone thinks Joel's going to die. Does Joel die? And I just kind of giggled and I went on. I go, I'm not going to tell you that. I said, you have to experience the story how we experience the story.
Yeah, exactly. So it happens chronologically.
Whether that happens or not, you're going to have to wait and see.
For sure.
Anyway,
we got someone in chat.
That's how I feel with the rest of you.
Exactly. You got to wait and see. And especially Jesus in chat who says, I have to leave this channel. I haven't caught up in the last episode. Yes, we are totally spoiling episode 7. So if you haven't seen episode 7, hop on out of here. That's what we're talking about. That's the topic of the show here. So yeah, we start off Ellie and Joel. They're in this house. Joel is in really rough shape, barely just fighting for his life there. Ellie's panicking, doesn't know what to do. How am I gonna, get out of this situation? And Joel says, "Leave, get out of here, head north, find Tommy. He can get you to where you need to go. Leave me, I'm a dead man." And Ellie, very much panicking, not sure what to do. She starts walking up the stairs. We don't really know what she's intending to do, but when she gets there, she puts her hand on the door, and all of a sudden we get sent right into this flashback that will become the entire episode. So we get shot into the scene with Ellie running in what seems like a gym class. Kind of seems like she's in school. She's got her Walkman on, which is a cool little luxury to have in the apocalypse. That was cool to see.
For sure.
And it was awesome. And it was a cassette Walkman too, not the CD Walkman that you and I probably had when we were growing up. Those things,
that's for sure.
Those skipped a lot until they didn't.
Even the skipless ones, like, they're liars.
You know what? I had one. I had a Sony one when it was a Walkman, so they're all Sony. But I had one at one point where you could beat that thing up, and it really was skipless. And this was serious? Like, yeah, dude, it was. Oh, I still remember it. It was a red clamshell design. It had 3 blue dots on it. The thing was incredible. You could literally punch it and it wouldn't skip. It was
indestructible.
Creme de la creme, baby. And then the iPod came out like the year later and changed everything.
Oh, well, there you go.
Exactly. I was like, tail end. I barely got to use the thing. So Ellie's jogging around, and speaking of that Walkman, some bully rips it off her head, and they get into a little fight. They get into a little scuffle. Ellie, a year or so before, whenever this took place, not a year, a few weeks before, very same girl. Got her temper. She's going to fight for her Walkman. She gets sent to what's kind of like the principal's office, right? Whoever this guy is, she gets in trouble. And he gives us a little bit of a background of the Fedra and the hierarchy. He's kind of talking to her like, "Hey, you can either go down this path and become a grunt, and you're gonna get crap duty, and you're gonna sleep in a bunk with a bunch of people, and it's gonna be terrible, or you can follow the rules and you'll become an officer, and you'll have your own room, and you'll be able to tell these people what to do. These are your 2 paths, and figure it out." Ellie seems a bit conflicted, but she ultimately complies and says, "Yeah, I want to go down the path, become the officer. Like I'll be a good girl."
So I love that conversation between those two, and that's something that's new for the story here. And he basically tells her like she can be a leader, and I think that's important to future Ellie as well as we get into more of the season 2 stuff. But this is again a nice little thing where we had the hindsight of having both parts 1 and part 2 out, because you can kind of, where appropriate, fill in some of those blanks.
Yeah, they're doing a good job fleshing out some of that stuff that was addressed in the second game that makes sense to flesh out in the first part. So Ellie heads back to her room where we see her bunkmate is missing. She's there alone, kind of cuddled up in bed, reading a comic, as we know Ellie to do. But they keep kind of showing that empty bed there. All of a sudden she goes to bed and her roommate Riley breaks in. It's like 2 a.m, something like that. Riley breaks in. Ellie says, "Hey, I thought you were dead. You've been gone for weeks." And Riley breaks the news that she joined the Fireflies. And Ellie literally doesn't believe it at first. She thinks it's a joke. She starts laughing. She's like, "I'm not in the mood for this." But then Riley flashes the gun. She said, "No, I'm legit in the Fireflies." So that is a conflict. Ellie is, she's kind of being brainwashed and brought up by Fedra, and they're being told that the Fireflies are a terrorist extremist group, right? So that's what she's being raised, and that's what she's believing. Riley says, "Hey, I'll tell you everything, but you got to sneak out with me. You're going to say no at first, but then you're going to say yes, but you have to come with me. We're leaving this place. We're heading out. We're sneaking out." Ellie puts up a fight, but just like Riley said, she says yes. They do some catching up as they head to the rooftops. They're heading towards this abandoned mall. Ellie's shit talking the Fireflies quite a bit. She's dropping all these they blew up this outpost and you're gonna kill us. So kind of just some not so friendly banter about the decisions Riley made here. Riley's defending the Fireflies, but kind of just brushing off the conversation. They see a dead guy. Go ahead.
Oh, never mind. This is exactly what I wanted to talk about. So you lead this in.
Yeah. So they're heading towards the mall, and they have to go through a rooftop or whatever, and they find this dead guy that's got a bottle of alcohol. And of course, being teenagers, they swipe it.
So this episode, largely, I think probably there were 2 moments where I was nervous about jump scares or ever felt dread. And we, of course, have the hindsight of knowing what most of the story looks like. Doesn't mean they can't color in the lines a little bit. Like, I imagine when Riley snuck into her room, that could have been a little nerve-wracking at first if we didn't know this story. I was not nervous whatsoever. I'm like, that's Riley. This is how this is going to go. It is what it is. Them with that dead guy and basically about to poach that bottle, I was a little uneasy.
They
I
set
gotta
the
say.
tension in both of those scenes. They set the tension well because, like, just like you said, that first scene when Riley's coming in, you listen to the music, the way they're framing that, like, it is very suspenseful, intense, and like, yeah, you and I have the the benefit of knowing that it's not going to be a problem. But if you're watching this for the first time, that would be pretty scary. And I agree. That second one with that dead guy in the hallway too, same thing.
That was intense. I'm like, I don't know. Does he wake up? Like, that's very unnerving. And then of course when he basically falls and the way they just like jump like girls at a sleepover and just the giggle afterwards, all of it was awesome.
So good.
It was so well played because I kind of like jumped for a second and then I'm like, oh, we're okay.
It's yeah. So yeah, the tense, the jump scare is one thing. With that second part, the way they giggle, this relationship is the most real relationship that exists in the show and exists in the games. Like when these two are together, you almost forget that it's a zombie apocalypse, right? Like these two are just two young girls having a good time, and like the acting here by Bella Ramsey and Storm Reed are just like they're like best friends, right? You can tell.
Yeah. And they say that later on. They're best friends, and it really comes across. And I was thinking that too with watching Bella in particular. Like, she really nails that dynamic where she trusts her. And think about that. Bella, who plays Ellie, is this hard ass, tough exterior kind of girl. You cannot get close to her to a degree, but they've got a soft spot for each other. They're best buds, and I really felt that.
For sure. Great chemistry. So they finally get to this mall, which is their destination here, and Riley tells Ellie, head in, you go, make a right, make a left, I'll turn the power on, and you'll see something pretty cool. And that's exactly what happens. So Ellie walks into this mall, she's looking over this empty, dead mall, Riley flips on the power, and man, that scene hits well in the game, but something about the way it's framed and the way it's shot and the way it's lit, everything is so neon and beautiful here. It looks so cool when they flip that power on, and that dead mall just becomes absolutely lit up.
That is a visual that we'll see for years to come in promoting this series.
For sure.
It was perfectly executed.
That's one that could be like my computer screen, like wallpaper. It looks so good. So
yeah, I totally agree.
No doubt. So Ellie's speechless. She's never seen anything like that. Obviously, like she's probably only read about malls and in books or whatever, or only heard about them. But she's certainly never experienced a mall with full on electricity. So
funny things to take for granted, right, dude? Like, I'm looking down there thinking, you know what? I don't go there much, but I would miss the Galleria if we didn't have it.
For sure. Yeah, for sure. So Riley kind of takes back over. She says, all right, I'm going to take you on a little trip around this mall. We're going to see the 4 wonders of the mall. She's got this little day planned for her. Just kind of, seems like an innocent little hangout at first. And then right after that, they find an escalator and they realize that it's going to be the 5 wonders of the mall because Ellie is so enthralled by this escalator that she's having the best time. And we talked a little bit about these, these are just kids having a good time together. That's the scene that you really realize that, like, Ellie is a kid, man. Like, she is still a 14-year-old kid. She's on an escalator for the first time. Electric stairs, she calls them. And she's just running up and down. I'm not moving. I'm moving fast. I'm moving slow. Like, just having the best time.
Yeah, and furthermore, with Bella's performance in that sequence and at various times throughout the episode, this is the most, if you close your eyes, I think you wouldn't be able to tell apart video game why am I
Ellie.
trying to blank here? From the TV show. The tone, the inflection on the voice, the intensity at which she says things. This is the episode where really, like, that blended most of all to me so far.
Yeah.
And I think it makes sense because this is the most Ellie-centric episode.
Right. This is where she gets to be herself. Where I think maybe last episode was the most Joel-centric episode so far. That was the one we really got to see Pedro kind of show us his chops and show us his Joel and what he can really do. This is that episode for Ellie and Bella for sure. So with Riley and Ellie, the chemistry is already there, and you can already tell that they have a crush on each other. And they lean into that a lot more heavily in the show than they did the game. And I wonder if that's timing. I wonder if they kind of just wanted that to be a bit more of a surprise back in 2013, whereas maybe in 2023 it's not as big of a surprise. It's something that we see more in media that the world's a lot more used to and comfortable with. So they start leaning into that. These two girls have a crush on each other very, very early on. Almost every interaction, Ellie's a little close to her, and there's that little teenage awkwardness that wasn't really there in the game. They were friends in the game, and it kind of comes upon slowly. We'll get to the climax of where that ends up, but it's a little different.
It could be a few things there. for TV, it made sense to do this, to have that build up, to have more small dramatic moments like that. But also, if you're thinking 2013, like we didn't know that that's who Ellie was at that point, so that was more of a grand reveal, and it was like, oh, got it.
But it's the same for show watchers right now. There's been nothing in the show that has, like this is anyone who hasn't played the game. This is their reveal to, their reveal to Ellie's sexuality.
It's very true. So I guess the tiebreak comes down to it made sense more so from the story standpoint on television to do it that way.
Right. And it works. Like the chemistry is there. It's that they really do a good job of that awkward teenage crush. Like Ellie doesn't really know how to act around her. Like, but they still have that breakthrough of, yes, they're best friends. They're very comfortable with each other. But the awkwardness comes from the fact that there's something more there, right?
For sure.
So they get to the first wonder of them all. I guess the second wonder of them all, if you count the escalator, and that is the carousel. So there's this merry-go-round, the classic horse carousel, and Ellie is transported to a 5-year-old, and she's just having a ball on this thing. It's going around, lights are going crazy, and we get more of those looks between the two of them, those little flirty looks. But I mean, imagine barely ever seeing electricity in your life, and all of a sudden you're on this moving electric carousel. That's got to be pretty cool.
Dude, I even still knowing what happens, but in the TV show, but playing back to like the video game, I always felt like so exposed in that moment. I was like, oh my gosh, they're causing such a ruckus right now. Like
they did such a good job with that in general in the game. It's like, we are having too much fun for The Last of Us, and like it's almost like the first time you play Gone Home, which I'm not going to spoil Gone Home because I would love Courtney, who's in the chat, my wife, to play that game. But like the first couple minutes of Gone Home, if not like the first half of that game, you're convinced it's a horror game just because of the setting until it's not. But that's kind of what they're doing here.
Dude, that is a masterful way to tell a story. Let me tell you, Courtney, go play Gone Home. Yeah, it's so quick.
It is. It's literally like a 2.5 hour game.
You can make a night of it for sure.
Yep. So the second wonder of the world after they finish at the carousel there is the photo booth. So they get to hang out at the photo booth. Neither of them really know what that is. Riley's got $5 in her pocket. She said, "No, I saved it for you, of course." So they take their pictures, more bonding, more flirting. This is the first time you can really feel some like actual tension when they have their cheeks together and they're doing that one zombie pose. And Riley hangs out for just a second too long. Ellie's like, "I don't know what to do. Get off of me!" Like there's some teenage tension there, which is cute to see for sure.
Yeah, well played, well executed.
No doubt. So the third wonder of them all, or fourth, if depending on how we're scoring these, is the arcade. So this was maybe one of the coolest things, both in the game when you get to experience this and in the show. Ellie does exactly what we all do when we walk into an arcade. We sit down at the racing game and pretend to play. Everyone does that. Like it's perfect, especially when you're a kid. You get unleashed on this arcade. You sprint for the first thing you can interact with without any coins. You sit down right at that Daytona USA, whatever it's called.
100%. Also love that it's Mortal Kombat, by the way, that we're playing here again. Like that is awesome. Of course, there's a callback. She's got this on her wall in poster form in the first few minutes in this episode. So just, awesome to see.
Good thing you said that, because my next note was they play some Street Fighter 2, which I just am now realizing was actually Mortal Kombat 2. I had a typo here. I thought of the wrong fighting game. I'm not a fighting game guy. What can I say? But no,
okay.
Unmistakably Mortal Kombat. You've got you've got your finishers, you've got your finish him, your fatalities. I should say. But yeah, cool that think about this. She's got this Mortal Kombat 2 poster on her wall. She doesn't know what that is. She just knows video games as a concept, and she's this young girl who just thinks that's a cool idea, right? I found this poster somewhere in the trash. That sounds like an awesome idea. How cool is it to be able to go to this arcade with somebody and actually play the game?
What a sad existence to not know video games.
Man, gosh, is it even worth it at that point?
That's the part that has hit me most emotionally in The Last of Us.
For sure,
dude. What I was looking for and did not see on her wall, as they showed her wall for a minute, I was like, all right, come on, where's Uncharted? Where is it? Oh no, I know this is an HBO show.
That would be cool.
I was hoping.
There was. Did you see the Naughty Dog footprint? Do you know where that was?
No,
that was there. Didn't. It was not in the arcade scene. Rewind. I didn't catch this when I watched the show. I saw it on TikTok or Twitter or something like that. In that office scene where she's being reprimanded, when the guy drops down those keys, there's a Naughty Dog keychain.
I love that.
Me too. Yeah,
dude, Naughty Dog does it really well, and Sony does too, I'll say. So if you've Uncharted 4, you get to play You sit down on the couch and play a PlayStation 1. So Uncharted 4 is a PS4 game. And you get to play a level of Crash Bandicoot, one of the first games developed by Naughty Dog. Love that. Also, in Jumanji, you get to see Uncharted posters on the wall. Those are both Sony properties. I love that stuff.
Dude,
so they always tie it back.
In The Last of Us, there are so many PS3s around in the game The Last of Us. There's PS3s all over the place, and there's copies of like Uncharted 2, Uncharted, like that stuff. Yeah, they know their placement.
It's my favorite.
Yeah,
for sure.
But it's cool to be able to get this this live action world where you have some licensing and you can use Mortal Kombat instead of some, because this exists in the game too, right? Like they're obsessed with this like fighting game, but there's no name to it. It's just some generic fighting game. Now they can actually use Mortal Kombat because apparently that's how fair use works with TV, but not video games.
I was thinking that too. So I was calling back and I'm like, okay, it was a fighting game, but I don't believe it was actually Mortal Kombat.
No, definitely not. It was like something Killer, Slayer, like, generic.
Correct me if I'm wrong. Do you actually play?
I don't think so.
Doesn't Riley narrate it for you?
Maybe
she tells you what to do.
Maybe
she does it at some point. Like I don't know if the power goes out or something.
Right.
It
rings a bell. I don't know if you're actually controlling the game or if you just have like a first person view of what Ellie's doing. Maybe you control it. I forget. Yeah, it's been so long. I think what happens
is, I want to say like you either run out of coins or you run out of power in the game. One of the two. And Ellie's upset. So Riley starts narrating. So you close your eyes and you see the ridiculousness.
Oh, because the game's not on at all. Right. Yeah. They don't have power in there.
Okay. That's what it is then. So yeah. Like I play it, I have to match the buttons and mash the different combinations.
Right.
But it's all in Ellie's mind based on what Riley is narrating, and I love that sequence.
I think maybe the game's broken or something because the mall has power, but you're right. Yeah, it's a blank screen, and Ellie's bummed that she can't play, and Riley's like, "Close your eyes, I'll narrate for you."
They get upset. I feel like they get to it, and they're both like, "Oh,
yes, for sure." Yeah. Dude, I gotta replay Left Behind. I literally only played it once during the PS4 re-release, so now that Part 1 is out in this new beautiful remaster, I gotta play it again.
The definitive way to play it, especially seeing that we just got this episode and it looks better than ever, man.
Yeah.
Gotta go do it.
I'm gonna do it for sure. I love the fact that there's just money laying around everywhere. Like how quickly it lost its value once society goes to shit. Nobody cares about money. Like it's just, you can just walk through this mall and right in front of this coin machine, there's just dollar bills sitting everywhere. And Ellie's like, "How are we gonna play? We can't use that money. We need the coin money." And Riley just cracks open the thing. She's like, "You're welcome for coming here yesterday and cracking this open for us."
I did love seeing that. I thought that was cool. And a little bit of a dream come true because I'm like, when I go to Dave & Buster's, I want that to happen.
Me too. Now it's all digital. You can never even dream of that. Although I will say that happened to us one time. I don't know who I was with, but we had a card that just would not stop working. It just worked forever. I think I was maybe with my buddy Aaron, Mr. Weaver, a friend of the show, and it just kept working. And eventually they caught on and like, "Guys, can we check that card out? Like, I think something's wrong here." And they scan it and like, "Yeah, you somehow got like the employee thing on your card, and we got to figure that out." Yep, that was like,
oh man,
it was the best.
I thought maybe you won like an unlimited pass or something.
No, I wish. So we're having a good time here. They're playing Mortal Kombat 2 for a while. They kind of cut away and cut back. Like they spent some time playing. Like at first they were button mashing, and then they kind of come back and they kind of know what they're doing. Ellie wins a round, but we quickly kind of get away from that happy time, and we go a couple stores over, and we see that there is the way I wrote this is there's a clicker growing. Like he's just nested up, and he's in the network. He's chilling. Like, what a terrifying, again, we've seen this already, the way that they're doing this in the show, but man, creepier than in the game, the way that these things just kind of sit around and manifest, and it's kind of gross, man.
Dude, the way they shot that, they could have left off this episode with a sequence like that, but it was like eerie. It was brutal.
It reminded me of something in Stranger Things, like in the Upside Down, like seeing somebody get pulled in from the Upside Down. The way the lights were flashing, the way it was framed, it looked like a Stranger Things scene. If you're familiar, if you've watched much of that, those were the vibes I was getting.
So, what I mentioned earlier was there were maybe 2 times I felt like I was ready for a jump scare. This sequence here sets the rest of the episode up for me, so that it was so perfect because it almost feels out of place. But what it did for me, who thought he knew exactly what was going to happen, and I basically did, was it created a little bit of doubt now.
Right. Like, when is this going to happen?
Yes, the last 20 to 25 minutes, I could not be comfortable anymore.
Right.
When that sequence shoots around to all the dolls before we get to the clicker,
So creepy.
I was thinking like Twisted Metal in my head, like some of those later Twisted Metal games that came out on PS2 and PS3. Like that was super well done. And like I said, if nothing else, the rest of the episode, I was like, oh, okay, you win. I am sucked back in. I was in this false sense of security.
Right.
Not anymore.
Yeah, exactly. Courtney in the chat says Stranger Things is all I think about this episode. Yeah, great point. I mean, like season 3 of Stranger Things, Starcourt Mall, the neon stuff, the creepiness with the upside down, a lot of similarities between with Stranger Things and what we got from this episode. So we cut back. Riley says, we got to get out of here. I know you want to keep playing the arcade, but I got a gift for you. Come on over. Actually, I think Ellie wants to go home. I think she says, like, I got to get up early. Like, I should really go. And Riley kind of lures her back, like, I got a gift for you. And she's like, I do like gifts. So they get to like this back hallway in the mall, and Riley pulls out the volume 2 of the pun book. So Ellie is obviously lit right up. She's super excited. They read off a few puns. And when it's Riley's turn to kind of put her head down and look at the book, Ellie's looking around the room, and she finds some explosives. And she realizes that Riley's been stationed at the mall. She's not just kind of there by happenstance. She didn't just come back to come back. She's probably stationed there with the Fireflies. So they break out into a full-on fight again. They kind of spiral down their opinions, and Ellie's talking about, are you going to use these on me and stuff like that. And it's a very heated conversation. And is that where Riley says that she's leaving during that fight?
I believe so.
Yeah, so they're having that fight in that back room. Ellie storms off a little bit. Riley kind of follows her out and like gets her attention again. She says, hey, like, this was my way to say goodbye because after this, I'm leaving. Tonight's my last night in Boston. She said, I asked Marlene if you could come, but she said no. Ellie's like, who's Marlene? First of all, and second, and then Ellie's just like, okay, you wanted to say goodbye, you did it. And she kind of storms off.
Right before that, John, with the pun book, I love that they don't understand the screenshot.
Yes.
Pun. That was my favorite. Because
really
they both kind of like smile and they're like, what does that mean? I don't know.
That's awesome.
They wouldn't know, yeah.
I can't imagine how much of that stuff is in the book where it's like, no clue.
Seriously, it's foreign.
So yeah, Ellie storms off, but then she quickly realizes that she may be overreacted, and she kind of turns back and she wants to head over there and maybe patch things up with Riley. But we hear some screams. We get a bit of a shock because we know that infected is there, and we get some what sounds like a girl screaming, but then we realize that it's just a Halloween pop-up scary ghost because that's where Riley's hanging out in the Halloween store. So they kind of have their conversation. They make up. Ellie kind of says, you sure you want to do this? You sure that's what you want? Ellie goes, okay, I understand, whatever. And then Riley pulls out some Halloween masks. They've got the clown and they've got the werewolf. And they just start dancing and having a good time. That part's a lot of fun in the game when you get to put the masks on and just walk around the Halloween store. One of my favorites.
It is pretty... That's a memorable moment in the game, and getting to try on all the different masks and the stuff that jumps out at you that because you don't know, you think it's going to be a clicker or something. Nope, it's just in this old school Halloween store. And then as Neil Druckmann kind of says, like in The Last of Us, we give everyone their best moment and then we take it away.
Absolutely.
Like, oh man, what a premise.
It is exactly what happens. So they're having this dance, they're having a good time. They've got the masks on, and then all of a sudden the music dims a little bit. Ellie takes her mask off, Riley takes hers off, and Ellie says, "Don't go. Don't go. I don't want you to go." And Riley says, "Okay." And then they share that what we knew what was coming, and they have their first kiss. So that was what was building up the whole episode. Like we said, that was a lot more on the nose throughout the whole episode in this, television adaptation than it was in the game, but nevertheless the same outcome. They have their first kiss there, and right as they get to enjoy that, just as Josiah said, as Druckmann said, we're going to take that away because that's when the clicker comes in. It attacks full force. Brutal scene like this, like the acting, the movements with the clicker falling all over the place, knocking the shelves down. Like it was a really brutal altercation, I guess I can say. It gets
incredible physical acting,
for sure.
Incredible physical acting,
and that's been the case with all of the infected, the clickers, the runners, like the bloater, all that stuff so far. Like that's what they're absolutely crushing in terms of like authenticity to what we got in the game here. And it's just a little extra unsettling because that's an actual person doing all those movements, right? Like in the game, you can make video game characters do anything, but that's a real person.
Yeah, they're a little too good at that.
I know it is a little crazy.
If I could just go back real quick, so the kiss. This sounds funny. I love the way it was shot.
Okay.
Watch it again. go back, watch this episode. The way the camera comes back as soon as they pull away. It's very artistic to me because what it is it captures the essence of their awkwardness. Like that is done in the camera there. So they pull away, the camera kind of like does this pull away and up. And it's almost done like freehand and
like a little bit shaky.
Purposely shaky. Just something that stuck out to me. Go watch that again. I feel like that was very purposeful.
Makes sense. I'm sure it's something that impacted the way I saw it, but I didn't realize it. It makes sense. They pull you out of the moment the same way they kind of pull themselves out of the moment, right?
Yeah, like what better way to put yourself in someone's shoes than through good camera work, and they did it there.
Right.
But yeah.
So we have that altercation with the clicker. Ellie gets the best of it. She pulls her knife out, stabs it a couple times, kills it. We get another one of those like not bizarre, but just fascinating scenes with Ellie where like she just loves the violence. This is something they're really trying to nail home in this series. Like it happened when Joel killed the security guard. It happened the first time she's in the basement in that place and she, kills the one infected. Like she's fascinated and really enjoys the violence. And I think that does play a bit into her character as the story moves on here. For a second, she thinks they're in the clear, but she looks down. She's got a bite on her arm. And Riley has a bite on her hand. So they both got bitten. We know where this is going. we assume that this is where Ellie finds out that she is immune because obviously that's the bite mark that she has throughout the entire time. And we know that Riley is not going to make it out of this because that's not what happens unless you're Ellie. Ellie kind of goes on a little tantrum, smashing bookcases, like super frustrated and mad at what happened. Then they kind of sit down and have a conversation, and Riley kind of commands a conversation and says like, "Hey, the way I see it, we've got two options." She pulls out her gun. They kind of just look at it and say, "Take the quick way out." Or we have option 2. We just let this ride out. Who knows if it's going to be 2 hours or 2 days, but whatever it is, I don't want to give any of that up. Whatever time we have left together, I don't want to give any of it up. Ellie kind of begs, is there an option 3 as she's crying? Kind of tore me apart. But they ultimately go with option 2. So they have the same line they had in the game. And we'll just kind of lose our mind, be all romantic and lose our minds together. And that's a great thought, but we know it's not going to play out that way because Ellie is not going to turn. We don't get to see any of that, though. That's kind of left up to our imagination. That's the end of all of this Ellie and Riley stuff. Yeah,
I was happy that that's where it pans away, and that's where we're done with kind of the flashback sequence, so to speak, there. And I got to say, like, obviously, but man, thank goodness they didn't take option 1, right? Like, for a number of reasons.
Oh, my God, you're right. Can you imagine that?
Like, from a relatively serious standpoint, you don't know what tomorrow holds, and guess what? Tomorrow was that Ellie was okay. As horrible as that is, that she lost Riley, Ellie's got kind of this bigger responsibility,
right? Which
we'll see down the line, right? But she has some immunity to this, and she might be able to help civilization find a way to have a vaccine or be back on the mend. And I thought, more so than even in playing the DLC, that this was on my mind. And I was like, oh my gosh.
What if?
Like, thank goodness. Thank goodness.
Have you ever seen the movie The Mist?
No.
The movie ends the exact way that you're saying that could have ended. And it is like it's a really weird horror monster movie. Like it's well shot, but the concept's a little out there. But the reason it's so popular is because of the ending. And I'm sure you're never gonna watch The Mist, but it is a group of people who choose to take that way out, and moments later, rescue comes. And it's just the most devastating thing ever. And once you said that, that's exactly what I thought of was The Mist.
Just terrifying, man, to think about. But
absolutely,
yeah,
brutal.
I just that was on my mind more so last night while watching that, for sure.
Yeah, and I think something, again, not taking away anything from video games. We're the biggest video game fans you'll find here. We've got our own video game podcast. Find us talking about it after this. Yes. But there's something different about live action, and there's something different about the way that you resonate a little bit more with human beings than you do with like AI characters, right? So that's the end of the flashback. We head back to real time. Ellie's in that house. She opens the door, and we kind of realize what that parallel was Ellie making that decision that she's not gonna give up. She's not going to abandon Joel. She needs to do what she can to make this work and to keep this person with her, because she obviously just remembered the fact that she lost the only other person that's been close to her, right? She just went through that entire journey in her head. She relived that. And she can't let that happen to Joel. So she opens the door. She sprints for the house. She's tearing it to pieces, looking for whatever she can find. She finds some sutures, some stitching to be able to get him stitched up. She heads down there. She stitches him up, and that's how it ends.
Yeah, it's a beautiful callback again in the way if there wasn't motivation before to save Joel and try to spend every second with him, there is now, knowing what we know from Ellie's past. And I love even the way that when she's trying to sew him up, the way it hurts like hell, I can only imagine.
Oh, for sure.
But the way he's squeezing kind of her shoulder, and then when they've got each other's hands for a minute, that is like true camaraderie there. Whether you want to see this as kind of like a father-daughter relationship or just two friends, like this is kind of, to me, the pivotal moment for them so far in this season, where there's no going back. These two are going to kill for each other, and that is it.
There's been some incremental moments, and there's been some big jumps, like when we got the 2 month ahead, when we got him deciding to take her. But this is the nail in the coffin, if you would. This is this is ride or die, right? These two people are in it for the long haul together.
They're now intertwined forever,
for sure.
Yep.
And we will see how that plays out.
How awesome is that, though, to think on the flip side? So what we know so far in this series is Joel lost his daughter. So obviously there are times when he has those flashbacks and sees just shades of her and Ellie. But now we know on the flip side, no, it wasn't a father figure, but it was a best friend that Ellie had that she lost. So she also had loss, even though it was a different kind. And Joel is filling that void a little bit here. So it's a really nice contrast, and it sets up what I think could be a really killer final 2 episodes, right? Like, these are going to be good, no doubt. The whole series has been, but I really think there's potential for these to be the best 2 yet.
So my prediction is that the next episode, episode 8, is going to be the best episode of the series. And that pulls a lot from what we know from the games, of course, and some of the casting that's going to go into maybe some of the side characters, and I'm very excited for. We've got the tease and confirmation that Troy Baker is going to be in the next episode, the original voice actor behind Joel, who's just an incredible actor and just absolutely freaking charming man in general. So can't wait to see him. But yeah, I just see myself walking away from next episode knowing what's going to happen. It's going to be, especially I wasn't sure when they would leave it off, but with the previews we got, we're getting the end of winter next episode. We are getting the climax of winter. If you're not familiar, the game's kind of broken up into the 4 seasons, and that's kind of the way they define different big moments in the game. There's basically 4 sections of the game, and we're going to get to the end of one of them next episode.
Dude, in my head, without spoiling anything, that's where I had it. As we got at the end of episode 6, we knew this was going to take up episode 7. I was like, I've got a good feeling where we're going to get that fade away for episode 8.
Perfect.
And then we know some big stuff is going to happen for episode 9, and I can't wait. I can't wait to talk about what happens at the end of episode 9 with all of you, especially all of you who have no idea what's coming.
Oh.
And it's going to be epic.
Can you imagine? I wish I could watch this with fresh eyes. I mean, it's great also knowing what's going on and seeing the differences. That's part of the appreciation for us, of course, but how sick would it be to not know this story and be able to watch it for the first time?
It's true, John, but I still feel like, to a degree, it's for sure the first time the way this is coming across.
Yes.
That's hard. That's so hard to do in any medium, I feel like. But for me, I'm just I know what's happening, but I'm still feeling the weight of all of it, which is why I think this is such a good TV show.
Yeah, nothing is lessened. My excitement is just as it would be if I didn't know what the story was, because it's a different kind of excitement, because we know what happens in a lot of ways, but how are they going to do it? And we love and appreciate the story so much. Of course, we want to see them pay the proper homage to it, and they certainly have done that.
Yeah, they really have. Good stuff ahead. Buckle up, folks.
I think early on we kind of both shared the notion that, man, we finally know what it's like for a book reader to see their favorite film adapted to TV. But at the same time, we don't, because most of them are usually disappointed with those adaptations. They're crushing it for us. This is our first time around where something that really means something to us is being adapted to a more mainstream and different medium, and it's still just as good, if not better.
I'm sorry, book readers. I have no idea what you're
Yeah, really, this is
no idea
great.
what you're bitching about.
I don't know what's the problem here. This is amazing.
Seriously, the one time John and I see something that we love in a different medium and we're like, this is great.
You guys a bunch of idiots. Come on.
Here's the difference. What I've always said with books going to TV or books going to movies, when you're the producer or director on that film, you're getting your interpretation of the book, right? Because novels can be relatively open to interpretation to a degree. So, like, how could I fault them? They have the camera. They're the ones that are bringing this story to life.
For sure.
We have Neil Druckmann, who did the video game, with this camera as well. Like, oh my god!
I think it helps a lot with the fact that a video game is already an audio and visual medium, right? So they already they have the palette down. They know what things are supposed to look like and sound like. Whereas,
I'm just being a jerk.
Oh, I know. No, it's a good point. Like having the person who's the lead producer behind the game heavily involved. Like, of course it's going to come out right. But yeah, like, with books, it's so tough because like you have to imagine that room in your head, rather than seeing it and have someone else realize that it's never going to be the same.
Like, I don't know totally what Frodo was going to look like when I saw Lord of the Rings after reading it, but like, hey, it is what it is.
The answer is boring. Either way.
Peter Jackson had an idea. That was it. So yeah, it's just funny to talk about, and yeah, we're 1 for 1, I guess.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, well, you know what? To be fair, are we though? Because there's been a lot of real bad video game adaptations that exist out there. There's been a lot of fun stuff.
We don't really count those.
Yeah,
we
right.
Don't count them.
For sure.
I saw a commercial for Halo yesterday, and I was like, I legitimately forgot this existed.
Thanks for that, because I did too, and that was great to forget.
If I'm gonna go down, you're gonna go down with me.
I hate it so much. Oh, imagine the Halo fans right now, like just thinking like what could have been. Again, I'm a Halo fan too, but I mean the people who don't care about The Last of Us, if you're some kind of weirdo. But man,
I'm a huge Halo fan, and that hurts. But
what could have been?
Get on this level, Any wrapping thoughts on episode 7 before we move on to episode 8?
No, I'm so excited, man. These 2 episodes are going to be incredible. We talked about it before, but man, they crush the pacing. Everything's so perfect. It just lines up. Like, yes, give me 2 50-minute episodes to wrap up this story. Like, yes, there's 2 big beats left for the most part. Like, let's go.
Can't wait. Catch our discussion here on episode 8, The Last Jedi of Us. Sorry. We're going to be talking video games shortly here live at twitch.tv/thegeekiverse. Busy Sticks, it's our all gaming talk show. This week on Busy Sticks, we're catching up on a few things in the gaming world, including the Suicide Squad reveal for gameplay on the PS5. So stay tuned for that. Again, you can catch all episodes of our recaps of The Last of Us at youtube.com/thegeekiverse or on podcast services, wherever you listen to podcasts. For John, I'm Josiah. Thanks so much for tuning into this episode. We'll catch you next week.